everybody. I'm Dr. Paola Gemme, and this presentation is to introduce myself to you and give you some information about my personal and academic background and information about the topics I can lecture on for cruises and the style of my presentation. As I'm sure you noticed already just by listening to me for a second, English is not my native language. I was born, raised, and educated in Italy. I went to the University of Genova, from which I obtained a laurea. It's the equivalent of a BA in comparative literatures. From there, I was granted a scholarship to pursue graduate studies in the United States. Specifically, I was a Fulbright student fellow at Penn State, and I graduated from there with a PhD in English. I moved to my present institution, Arkansas Tech University, where I'm now full professor of English and American Studies and director of the MA English program. Now, I have degrees in English and I work in an English department, but I describe myself and I propose myself to you as a cultural historian. What's a cultural historian? We examine the ways that societies have expressed their beliefs and their values, not only in literature, but also in art, religion, music, fashion, and all the practices of everyday life. And in practice, this means that my scholarship and my teaching are interdisciplinary, and that I am interested not only in culture with what we may call a capital C, but also in popular culture. Let me give you an example of this interdisciplinarity and this particular approach from my research, my teaching, and some of the lectures I have offered on board. This is my research. I have written a book titled Domesticating Foreign Struggles, in which I examine American texts that comment on the process of nation formation in 19th century Italy. And I have examined mostly travel writing, but also articles from illustrated periodicals, hence the picture that you see on the book cover. More recently, I have worked on a project called Dallas in Prizzi, and there I study street art of Italian subject painted by American artists on the walls of a village in the hinterland of Sicily. This interdisciplinary approach characterizes my teaching as well. I have taught a class on food in American culture where, among other topics, we have examined the link between the rise of the fast food industry and the suburban expansion in post-World War II United States. I've also taught a culture on Latinx experiences in the United States, where among other topics we looked at lowriders as an expression of cultural identity, but also of resistance, insofar as the deliberately slow cruising challenges dominant norms of speed and efficacy. Let me give you an idea of what I can do on board. This is me lecturing on the Norwegian Joy in January 2025. Our itinerary brought us from Los Angeles to Miami, and we had stops in Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama, we went through the Panama Canal, and then Colombia. In terms of topics, I offered a lecture on chocolate because the Maya of Guatemala were the first to use cacao beans to make a beverage, which then the Aztec of Mexico inherited. Again, because we stopped in Guatemala, I offered a lecture on tradition and change in the Maya textiles. And when we stopped in Colombia, I, as a literature professor, could not but speak about Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who is Colombia's most prominent literary figure and the winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1982. Now, this is the what I do, but I want to give you a taste of how I discuss these topics. At some point in my presentation on chocolate, I talk about the Spanish conquest of Mesoamerica and their encounter with the cacao plant and chocolate. And I show the audience a slide of the Christ of cacao. That's a statue, 16th century statue, in the Cathedral of Mexico City. It's adjacent to the Aztec Templo Mayor, which the Spaniards destroyed. Now, the Aztec used cacao beans in religious ceremonies and were accustomed to offer them to their deities in the Templo Mayor. As a strategy to convert them to the new religion, the Spanish Catholic clergy made it possible for them to now offer cacao beans to the Christ of cacao, seen here represented holding a stalk of cacao. And it was a way to facilitate conversion by presenting the new religion with features of the old one. I hope through this presentation I've been able to convey to you foremost the joy I've experienced in preparing for my teaching and delivering it to different audiences. Here you see me, not with adults, but with children. I'm in my Day of the Dead costume, helping children decorate sugar skulls in a cemetery in Russellville, Arkansas for Day of the Dead. Teaching has been a very fulfilling career and continues to be a fulfilling career for me. And part of the fulfillment that comes from the positive feedback I received from my audiences. And here you see me holding a teaching award, which I received at Arkansas Tech University, and I wouldn't have gotten it if my students hadn't written good comments about my teaching. And I want to close with the most gratifying aspect of working on cruises has been the generosity with which the audience has expressed its gratitude for my teaching. This is an email I received from one of the guests on the Norwegian Joy, where the gentleman writes that my lectures were everything I would have hoped for: insightful, challenging, informative, and delightfully presented. But what made me smile was when he concluded, "Your students are blessed to have you at the university." And I thought that's a sentence I need to put in my course descriptions the next time I teach the dreaded compulsory freshman composition class that nobody wants to take. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention and your time.